I'm going to start with introducing the panel chair, which is Myla. Myla is the Director of Forward Ladies, the UK's largest women business support organisation, an executive council member of the Commonwealth Business Network, and an advisory board member to the international humanitarian aid charity Go Global. Then our three panelists, let me see which order you're in. First, Deep Cayley, who is a fashion stylist and consultant. She was previously the fashion director of Tatler. She was also the previous fashion editor of Vogue India, and previously worked with Kim Jones, who is now the creative director of menswear at Louis Vuitton. And we have Sach Kokadia, who is the co-founder of Secret Sales, an online fashion business, which was founded in 2007 by him and his brother Nish to shake up the online retail industry. Today, secretsales.com is the UK's largest flash sales destination, selling 16,000 designer brands at up to 70% off, which I'm sure we all like. Could you pay
that was nice.
Let's be clear. And then last but definitely not least, Alia Fateh, who is the CEO of Amanda Wakely. She began her career actually at Pricewaterhouse before moving to Condé Nast, where she launched Vogue in Russia and spent 9 years at the helm of Tatler as its managing editor.
So as you've heard, they represent they bring a wide range of experience representing various segments of the fashion industry. And what we're hoping to hear is a little bit about your journeys and knowledge that you can share with us that are transferable potentially to other industries, not necessarily creative ones. So when we think about the fashion industry, I think it's fair to say that the perception and how it's portrayed in the media potentially is frivolous, superficial, at times. It's linked to exploitation of planet and considered to be quite wasteful. I heard something the other day that said 2,000 litres of water is wasted when creating a $5 T-shirt. So what is the true cost of that T-shirt, for example? You've got cheap fashion, which is, you're using this sort of polluting plastic, if you will, that's derived from fossil fuels and all these kinds of things, like exploitation of labour and things like that, and considered the ultimate in consumerist materialism. Back in the 60s, I think the average person had about 25 pieces of clothing. And you fast forward to today, and we've actually got wardrobes full. So, that is the perception of the fashion industry. But is that actually fair? It's one of the most important industries. And when we look at the figures, it's actually worth trillions of dollars and employs over 60 million people globally. And when you take that alongside a country's GDP, the fashion industry would be ranked even the world's 7th largest economy, right? So, I really want to ask the panel, why they think the fashion industry is important to the wider society and to the economy. And I'm looking at you, Ali, as the former accountant, actually.
Well, I think the word frivolous, I probably take to heart as what it actually really means. And frivolous means paltry or trumpery or silly without sense. And I don't think £28 billion worth of revenue to this country is silly or without sense. And they're not two words that I use very often in my day-to-day role. So, yes, I think we can all look at several different industries in the world that today as potentially every industry has its frivolity, perhaps, and has aspects of it which are silly and don't make sense. I don't believe fashion is one of them, and I think that the business of clothing people is actually, it's from time immemorial when someone stuck a fig leaf on someone. It's something that is in our nature to do, and fashion employs millions of people, just as you said, and it also drives creativity. It drives, think of all the retrospectives that are on right now. There was a thing at the Textile Museum today with Anna Sui. There is a retrospective on Balenciaga. These people were not just people sitting behind a sewing machine and cutting material and fashioning it. They were visionaries in their own way, in the ways that great artists like Matisse and Chagall and Picasso were revered. Designers were revered in that same way. And I think, the world needs things that make them feel better about themselves. And from a purely practical point of view, when people are well-dressed, and we see this in the store all the time, if a woman comes in, she's not feeling great about herself, we put her in something, and it is transformative. She stands taller, she puts her shoulders back, she looks and feels more confident, and that comes across, in her day-to-day life, and it makes your life better.
I mean, just in addition to that, so, you know, fashion is an extension of, you know, one's personality. So, you know, how you dress, how you act, how you present yourself to society is very much a reflection of you and your family and you know, your background. What I've seen is that there was a different consumer pre-2008, you know, pre-recession. There was a luxury consumer who was out spending, you know, thousands of pounds, you know, going to Selfridges, buying a £1,400 Chloe handbag, for instance, and she would boast to her friends and to her family that she spent £1,400 on this beautiful bag. And what the media did over the course of, you know, a decade is actually condition customers into wanting to save. You know, the economy's shrinking, stop spending your money, and because fashion is such a necessity to people's lives, what eventually happened was people started looking for discounts. People started looking for a way to save.
Yeah, I think it has changed massively. The idea of luxury has changed in the sense that before it used to be aspiration to these high-end brands, which kind of still exists, but you know, there's only a certain percentage of people that can afford to buy that. So now luxury, obviously the business of fashion has changed into the business of beauty, right? So now you sort of set the aspiration, you have all of this, but only one, like a tiny percentage of people are buying that stuff. But you can touch that by buying, you know, the beauty brands, or you can buy the perfumes and stuff like that. That never used to be around as much years ago. And then it was the high street, right? The high street started imitating what was happening on the runways. And then that, it became accessible in a very different way. But for me, luxury, in terms of showing luxury and the way, like, you know, you've got new markets and the way they show luxury now, that is like kind of really intriguing to me. And for me, the most luxurious thing right now is time. It's not what you wear and how you wear it.
Actually, fashion is ubiquitous, right? I mean, it covers everything from your basic needs, so we're not arrested for being naked, unless you live in an Amazonian tribe. But as you said earlier, it's all about, you know, going all the way to self-expression and communication and things like that. But I've been hearing about affordable luxury and how that's changed. And you touched on the stack. So, for example, you know, Tom Ford and Gucci, they make their money not actually from the runway or their haute couture, but actually from the perfumes and the beauty products and maybe the small leather goods, unlike someone like Giles Deacon, who relies on haute couture and things like that. But what is this affordable luxury that we keep hearing about?
It's interesting because, you know, if I was to ask the audience whether they felt that Ralph Lauren was a luxury brand, I imagine that the majority of you would probably say yes. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Oh.
Well, that's good, because that's the right answer, by the way, because 80% of their sales are actually made for outlet product. Yeah. So they don't sell a lot of their full price lines. So the stuff that you see, the purple label, the black labels, the stuff that you see in Harrods, you know, all of those polos you can find in Bicester Village, but what people don't realize at Bicester is that it's a different product. It's a lower grade material, you know, it's been manufactured in different products.
But it's a different customer.
It's a different consumer.
Yeah.
But the point being is that Ralph Lauren is perceived as a luxury, well, I think globally it's perceived as a luxury brand,
yeah.
But it is not. The pricing structure and the model is an off-price model. And actually a lot of businesses are now catering for this. So what we're seeing at Secret Sales, and I can't really talk holistically for the fashion industry, but I can talk specifically about us, is that what we're seeing is a lot of premium brands being more open-minded towards selling at a discounted level and actually producing products specifically for this market. So, you know, Versace, we go into Versace's head office in Milan and we will actually do a buy as a full-price customer for discounted product, and they will produce it for us with materials that make sense for them, with margins that make sense for them, and we'll be able to sell it on. And actually, the consumer, we're not hoodwinking the consumer, but what we are doing is offering them a capsule range of product that is Versace, but is more accessible.
What's interesting is having been taking a brand from being very much known for evening wear, occasion wear, and then building it out into a lifestyle brand, is you're still sort of seeing how these product lines work before you would decide if it's really an established business that can see forward to being in an outlet village. And an outlet village is a hungry beast to feed, which is why this whole thing came on about made for outlet. Before, it was simply the stock that you had that hadn't sold, and you would just give it as one big chunk to an outlet, and they would sell it for you at whatever discount that you would agree between yourself and the retailer. And you need to be, if you like, you almost need to be a Ralph Lauren to be able to distill your brand into that. I would feel very nervous of doing something like that with Wakely, especially as we are really gaining momentum with full price product. For us, full price is important. But Satch is right as well, that retailers are constantly freaking out because they're not seeing their sales at the right time. So they are discounting, but they discount in a way that the consumer is never thinking, you know, before, like, we were all like, I'm going to save my money, and then in the sales, I'll buy a winter coat, or I'm going to buy an evening dress, or whatever. It's not like that, because every few minutes, you'll get an email to tell you that someone is giving you 30% off for this weekend only, and you're running to the iPad, and oh my God, it's so stressful. Who the hell wants to shop like that? And when you say about
5 million customers,
I don't.
as I believe.
No, I mean, I don't. I'm a working mother, so believe me, I buy everything online.
At a
because
discount.
At a discount. I'm also an Asian working mother, so yes, discount. Price does drive you to a point, but I do believe that people enjoy experience more. And if I don't talk too much, but that's something that we have worked so hard on, that the experience that you get in store is magical and makes you feel wonderful about yourself and does all of those things, which is why stores haven't closed and people aren't just shopping on the internet, because they want that human interaction. They want to go into a place and talk to someone.
So how do you curate? Who are you targeting when you're curating these fabulous Tatler covers, for example? Is it the person that shops at Bicester, or is it us in the room? I mean, I don't know how many of us go to Bicester. Who are you targeting?
At Tatler, definitely not the person that goes to Vista. It's that kind of that small percentage. You know, they were high-end earners, so just top of the top, like
It's ultra high net worth.
Ultra high net.
And the same with Vogue India?
Vogue India was a different beast. Because when they launched it 10 years ago, India was just new to all of this, right? And we were one of the first luxury magazines. So Vogue India played on different things. It was going to educate, it was going to educate the industry, or not the industry, well, industry as well, but the country into fashion.
And were you instrumental in launching Amanda Wakely, across the globe as well? And what were the differences?
We talk about Middle East and we talk about China, but the biggest luxury market, actually, which most people aren't aware of, is still the US. Per dollar and person per person, it is still the biggest consumer of luxury product. So you have to be very targeted in how you expand internationally. You know, you have a brand, and with all brands, you need to, before you go into a new territory, you need to build the brand awareness. And that is a big thing to do with your marketing strategy, your PR strategy, your social media strategy, and being joined up as a brand from 360 degrees. A lot of brands talk about this, but the biggest part of my job is communicating and making sure. I mean, when you're small, you can just turn over and go, does everyone get that? Yeah, fine. When you're bigger, you're constantly emailing everybody to make sure that everybody knows what you're doing so that they can all be joined up. And I think that as you get bigger and are targeting different markets, it's understanding how the brand translates into that language as well. Just as Vogue, I mean, Vogue as a word in Russian does not work because there's a V, but it's like Vogue.
Okay, well, you've touched on social media, Deep. I'm really keen to understand how that's changed things for what you do.
With what I do, it's made everyone experts. Which is kind of a little bit annoying. It's just given everybody, yes, but we have yet to see, and maybe Satch, you can contradict me on it, but this, on the creative side, we've yet to see how those influencers are actually, in the creative world, how they're actually making a difference.
What about digitization, right? So you set up the first flash sale. Where did you get the idea? You're 6 months out of university. Where did you get this idea to set it up, and how has it changed things?
So I sort of grew up in what was a fashion-forward upbringing. My father was in the fashion industry, and I was, from a young boy, always, you know, going to trade shows and going to meetings with him. And he used to always say to me, "What is it you want to do when you grow up?" And I was like, "I want to do what you do." And he was like, "Well, I don't. What is it that I do?" And I had no idea what he was doing. He just looked like he was having fun, and he was, always very, very, happy. And I sort of saw an opportunity when I was finishing off university with a French company that was doing flash sales, and actually they pioneered the concept. And no one was doing that in the UK. And actually, with our experience in fashion, having sort of grown up in a family that used to run a denim business, which was, or at least a shareholder within Pepe Jeans, we understood under that platform that actually there was a need for a clearance platform, because Pepe had a massive stock issue back in the day, and this flash sales business that originated in France was a clearance mechanism. So not only was it, generating urgency and giving customers a slightly different reason to shop, but it actually provided a great service that all the brands needed. And sort of it really resonated with our family. And so I sort of jumped into that quite quickly, totally blind, without realizing what I was getting myself into, because at that age, you sort of feel like, it's everything is available to you. But when you're putting various, your mother's house on the line because you're borrowing money from a bank and you're taking risks like that, I mean, in hindsight, that was probably quite a stupid thing to do. But it forced you to succeed. And, we sort of just, started with no experience. I was 22. And this is the God's honest truth. I hadn't worked for anyone apart from my father in my life. So I'd never had a job. I'd never had a physical paycheck. Although my father swept me. He made me work in warehouses for like 6 years, packing orders. I kept saying to him, "Can I work in the office?" And he was like, "No, you pack that order." It was slave labor. We're going to talk about that later, but that's what it was. And the point is that he, what he was doing was actually, teaching me the ground up, right? And so he was, not throwing me at the top end and saying, "You can have it all." He was like, "This is what you need to do," and actually understand what it means to get to that point. And we literally learned on the job. I cannot tell you how many mistakes we made in the first, we've been trading for 10 years. It's our 10-year anniversary this year, but first 3 to 4 years was just relentless mistakes. And the great thing back then is that you can make a mistake and you can be nimble enough to quickly change and adapt and understand what to do. Now, obviously, we still make mistakes. It's just that much more expensive. But you think about digital advertising, and that for me was just, I had no idea. I mean, the only thing that I knew I had was a good eye. I knew that I could go somewhere, make a nice selection of product, and I know that I could put it in front of a buyer. And I'm pretty sure they would take it. And, this was obviously under my father's guidance when he was doing other bits and bobs. And my brother, however, who is my co-founder, he's very different in terms of personality. He's very tech-based. He's more of he understood marketing more than I did. So when we launched the business, we had a very good dynamic. We had a very good balance. And his strengths were my weaknesses and vice versa. So we entered this, at full speed and really took advantage of that. And the thing is about working with your family, and I don't want to digress, but that really helped me because I sort of felt as though he was the one person I could trust. I mean, working with friends and people that are counterparts, you get to a point where people can become greedy and things can not always, go the way that you want. But I knew deep down, whatever happened, he was going to have my back. But going into digital advertising, for instance, he used to say to me, "Satch, you need to spend £30,000 a month on PPC, which is pay-per-click advertising. You go to Google, you type in cheap denim jeans, you would have to pay for that to appear in the listings." And I told him he was crazy. I was like, how are we going to pay £30,000 a month to do that? He was like, "Well, that's what I think we need to do." 8 months later, that's what we were doing. And actually, he was absolutely right because, we needed to drive traffic. But when we started, online was a very different beast. A lot of brands weren't online. A lot of customers had only just started getting online. There was mobile phone shopping wasn't, about at all. And we had to really just ride that wave. And this was at the recession as well. So we launched in 07 and 08 when the recession came, when everyone else was actually falling a little bit. We rode a wave that was very positive for us because the newspapers were hyping up the fact that we were selling all the premium brands that everyone wanted for a discounted price. So it made a lot of sense.
Nalia, do you have a big marketing budget at Wakely?
We have a good marketing budget. I think marketing is, I know for a lot of people from the outside, a bit like you were saying about, your brother saying 30 grand a month, I think people don't realize how much money you have to spend to launch a brand and to sustain a brand.
How much do you need to spend? Share with us.
I mean, large amounts of money, 7 figures numbers.
And what does it go on?
When you see the total number, you actually do feel nauseous. It has to be said. And I can tell you that when I when I joined Wakely, they had already sort of started this sort of journey to becoming lifestyle. But the one place that they hadn't invested in was the marketing and the PR. And I'll tell you that you end up spending the same amount, but I had to spend it in one lump really fast from the moment that I joined, because you can't send your customer on a journey and not tell her where she's going. And when I was being interviewed, they kept saying, we're doing this, we're on a journey. And my question was, does the customer know where she's going? Because if you put her on a bus and you've told her that she's going to Rome, and then the doors open and she's in Prague, you're going to be saying to her, she'll be like, well, where's Rome? And you'll be like, no, but here's Prague, and she'll be like, well, I don't want to go there. And your customer has to be, for us, our marketing is driven by our customer and the things that she reads, the things that she interacts with. So when we did a big piece on who our consumer was, and we all thought we knew who she was, all of us around the table were asked by this marketing company, and we all had our version of who Amanda Wakely's customer was, which is basically a hybrid of yourself overlaid by Amanda Wakely herself. So it was like you and Amanda had a baby together, and that was the customer. And when we got the results, yes, there were elements that we were right about, but a lot of it was quite an eye-opener for us. And then, for example, she reads The Telegraph, she reads The Economist. She's actually, we thought, potentially, she's the well-heeled trophy wife of, somebody, a hedge funder or a banker or whatever. No, she's earning her own money. And as a result of the fact that she's earning her own money, you can't bullshit this woman. She's a smart woman. So you can't tell her something is, you have to buy it because it looks pretty. You have to tell her that this product performs well. When you wear it, it's going to make you feel good. It doesn't crease. All of those things were important to her, that her clothing had a performance aspect to it.
Fashion businesses, in my eyes, were always quite emotional. So, finger in the air, I really like that shirt and I think it's going to sell. And actually, there is a lot of strength in that, because a good eye is a good eye, and I don't think you'll ever beat that. But what we've tried to do is make decisions based on data. So we built a tracking system that's, we own the IP for, which actually tracks where the customer is going on the website. So from the point that they land on our site to the point that they leave, irrespective of whether they've bought, we know what brands they looked at, what colors of product they looked at, what sizes of product they looked at, what went in their bag, what left their bag. It's all anonymized, so it's not like we're saying, it's an individual person, but we do gather that data. And 2015 and 16 was around 310 million unique user journeys that we tracked. And what we then do is pull that data, and we built a separate algorithm that then pre-populates the emails that we send out based on your behavior. So if an individual is only looking at shoes and they have a high propensity to buy shoes, we will be then sending them shoes within the emails, rather than sending them lingerie or whatever it may be. And that helped us a lot in terms of understanding the customer, but it also didn't work the way that we wanted, because there was a lot of assumptions that are made based on personalization, and that was a big sort of, hot word in the fashion industry over the past few years. And I'm still yet to believe or see true personalization come into play, because it's too personalized and too many assumptions, and you think that just because someone's looking at footwear all the time, that they're actually not going to be interested in buying, a swimsuit or something else. And therefore, we've had to pull that back. So despite sending out 70,000 unique variations of email that go out to 5 million customers, we've actually now pulled that back to only 15 different variations. So we're constantly testing, and I'm trying to understand what's right and what's wrong. But this is why there is no emotional attachment anymore. It's like, this is what the data says, that's what we're going to do.
Great. I think we're going to open up to the floor now. If you have any questions for our panel. Julia.
So Satch was about to tell us what he thought the future of fashion was in 5 years' time. I'd like all of you to agree on that, because retailers are being squeezed, rates are going up, margins are shrinking. What will happen to retail fashion? Will it all go online? Will it all be data-driven? What is the future, do you think, in 5 years?
Maybe we could each take that, say one point about.
I can't do it in one point.
You go.
But I can do it in a minute. So I'll be
There
very
you go.
quick.
Okay.
So for me, the future is about convenience. So shopping online is not about price. It's going to be about convenience. So it's about what can I do to make my life quicker. So grocery shopping, already Amazon is delivering to me where I live in London within 2 hours. I can buy everything on Amazon and it can get delivered to me. Forget Ocado, which is next day or whatever it may be. This is, and with Amazon testing drone deliveries in Cambridge, which is a 1 hour delivery, that will soon become the norm. And I'll be buying something, for instance, Dinesh, your blazer is very beautiful. I could be wearing optical glasses, like version 1 Google Glasses didn't work, but version 20 will work. And your jacket will be recognized by my lenses, and I'll be buying it right now. And with, these drones, it'll be delivered to my house before I even get home. And this is what will happen. I mean, this is the reality of it. And Facebook are making glasses, Google are making glasses. These software recognition, pieces and poking people via Facebook and adding people on LinkedIn will all be done via things that you wear. On top of that, you have VR. Sorry, very quickly. I'm sorry. Virtual reality. So actually, people might not need to go to store. They might be able to shop in store from home using their VR kit. And that is something that I think people are already producing now.
Well, I actually think what Satch is saying, I don't think that's going to happen in 5 years. I think that's going to happen in the next probably 18 months. I mean, I came out from China, and that is exactly what you can do. No one uses cash in Shanghai. The young guy who was showing us around basically said, take this bottle of water, put your phone in front of it. The QR code will identify that this is a bottle of sparkling water. It will tell you 3 places, maybe more, where you can buy it at different prices. You click on it at the price you want it. It will be delivered to your house in 24 hours. It's already there. We're already there. And I know this is awful, but I've sat with a lot of agencies in the last nearly 3 years and listened to them all pitch, whether it's digital or whatever. I'm over 30. I mean, it's done. I'm done. You know what I mean? I can't, you're not going to be able to understand the rate at which change is coming. And it keeps coming. But exactly like you said, it will come on the top level and it will be going at 100 miles an hour, but underneath the gray, the black, the dirt underneath it will keep building up. So you have to be your own moral compass.
What my question was is that given the very fast pace at which the disruption is taking place in the fashion industry as well, is there a regulatory body in the UK that actually looks at, that governs the fashion industry, that protects the retailer, consumer, producer?
But there is a body called UKFT. I worked for a smaller brand before, Amanda Wakely, and I used to use their site actually to look from factories in the UK, because we had to produce in the UK because we were so small, and it's not governed by anybody. It's almost sort of there as to give guidance, and factories, it will tell you certain factories that are signed up to Nesta agreements, which have like certain points that they have to adhere to. Because also, I'll just say, from the point of view of the smaller designers who are trying to get production made, and potentially in small amounts and different, outlets and whatever, it's a minefield. I mean, you'll go to something that looks like a factory, and 6 weeks later you'll go back and they've moved. I mean, I had heard loads of horror stories from, young designers who'd lost their entire production because they'd put it in the hands of people that weren't governed, and there's very little that you can do from a legal perspective to get your product back or whatever. So I would say there is UKFT, there is Nesta, and there are the laws of this country. But if you go outside of this country, Wild West, you have to be very careful.
Did you have a question?
I have a quick question on luxury. How do you feel that brands are getting prepared in targeting the millennials and next generation, where they're looking for brands which are labelless, which do not represent wealth, although they do have the quality and the integrity in terms of what they're looking for. So, for example, a handbag, what we're finding is that a lot of brands are getting prepared in producing handbags which don't have the label.
I think a lot of brands already do that. I mean, people tend to go to LV, Chanel, Gucci, what have you, because they want to sort of show it. But even within those brands, they are doing stuff where you can't see what they are, and it's all about design, it's about the quality. And again, it talks to the tribe, right? If you know about it, if you're in the in crowd and you know, or you've searched it, then you will find it. Because that's the thing, but that's just a transition, and that's going to happen differently around the world. Like we spoke about Russia, when Vogue and Tatler, especially when it first launched, everybody wanted to show the wealth. It's happening in India. You want to show that I've got the wealth after not showing your wealth for a long time, and it will just go back. Whereas actually, you know, people will become educated, and it'd be like, actually, there's a lot of credibility in design, actual true creativity, and in quality that you don't need to show it. You just, you know, it's a personality thing.
The product should stand alone from a design point of view and from a design aesthetic. If you want something that is uber branded, then, you know, most of the luxury brands have product that then sings to that part of their tribe. But even, you know, high net worth markets like the Middle East, they're very developed. They're not talking about first generation money. We're talking fourth generation money. And, you know, they're not looking to flash it in the way that, I mean, you know, it's still there. They still like more is more, and it needs to be product that will appeal to a certain demographic from an international point of view. But they're a lot more savvy than, you know.
I have one last question, actually, it's from me, and it's regarding startups and actually whether there's a sufficiently healthy appetite from angels and VCs in fashion startups.
I think there is still an appetite, I think, from a VC private equity point of view to invest in fashion. I think for a lot of private equity firms, the kind of product that they have been investing in is not exactly sexy. It's not really very cool. It doesn't really set your heather on fire. So for them, going into fashion brands is quite, it makes them feel glamorous, and it makes them feel all the things that we associate with the fashion brands. I do think for a fashion brand to get into bed with an investor that doesn't know what he's doing and doesn't have experience in the fashion industry and doesn't understand that if you make a decision in January for a high fashion brand, you're not going to see a result till 18 months later, is actually very dangerous, because, you know, you should, if you are going to get in bed with someone, they should know what they're doing.
I agree with that in principle. I think that if you've got a positioning in the market as a brand, and that you've been alive for a few years, you'll be able to find investment of some sort, because you need to demonstrate that you've got good KPIs. If you ask me whether there is appetite for a startup, I really don't think there is, and I tell you why. It's because 5 years ago, VCs, so venture capital, they would take punts. They would spread bet. They would invest into 10 companies, knowing that 2 would make enough money to cover the fund, 3 they would break even, and the other 5 they would just write off. And that's what it is. And they would play with people's lives by writing off companies and just putting them down because they were loss making and not making any sense. VCs don't actually take punts anymore. You know, they really scrutinize you. And what an investor, and I know this from personal conversations, no investor wants to put cash into stock. And whilst an accountant will look at stock as an asset on the balance sheet, I can tell you it's not an asset, it is a liability, and it is depreciating by the day. So it is a very challenging position to be in, unless you are going down the route of launching a marketplace or launching something that is just a platform that's bringing customers to a product, and you're just an intermediary. So, you know, Farfetch is now plus £1 billion in terms of valuation. They're 7 years old, and all they're doing is just, you know, getting products to a very wide audience.
With no stock in,
with no stock
liability.
It is a beautiful model. In fact, I'm gutted I didn't think about it. But it's a beautiful model, and it's super simple. And actually, you know, if traditional fashion is, I'm going to produce some stuff, I'm going to put £100,000 into making some dresses, and I've got to sell them, right? And the problem is it's in the first bit. It's I've got to put money down and produce that stock.
No, that's great. And just before I invite Dinesh to make some closing remarks, I just want to leave you with one parting thought. Had you invested in a pair of Air Jordan cements back in 2008, today it would have outperformed Apple stock by 20%. It's a humble sneaker outperforming the largest tech company stock in the world. So, on that note, I'd like to invite Dinesh.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I've learned a lot about the business of fashion. I want to thank Malia, Deep, Ahia, and Sach. We learned the importance of market research by most of you. Convenience, of course, and the luxury of time. The thing here is that we know that Jeff Bezos of Amazon will be the richest man in the world in 2 or 3 years, for sure. We know a few things that are coming, and you're so right in talking about 18 months rather than 5 years. It's going to happen so fast. It's not true. And by the way, now companies that are startups in 1 year are getting a valuation of $1 billion in Silicon Valley, and used to be 10. So to all the panelists, thank you very, very much. A hand for them.